Om Pavitram Charitam Yasyaha Pavitram Jeevanam Tatha Pavitrata Swarupinyai Tasyai Kurmo Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samsthita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Salutations at the holy feet of Divine Almighty. My respects to all the honorable professors, the lecturers of different universities of the country, and my love and good wishes to all the youngsters, the students who are the viewers of today's program. In the last 4 lectures, under the title Education, the Panacea, I could cover some important aspects pertaining to the importance of education, followed by the first 3 criterion. The first three criteria are recommended by our NAAC. Today it's my job to shed light on the 4th and the 5th, criterion 4 and criterion 5. So I have planned today's lecture in this pattern, that is the esteem, the pride of India in the eyes, in the vision of the historical tourists and philosophers of the world, followed by the concept of family, the importance of family that was felt in the society. The third aspect being the intellectual wars in the life of great achievers. Last but one, what today the world speaks about India. And finally, the criterion 4 and criterion 5 of our NAAC proposed project. I still remember the galaxy of great teachers who taught me what life is, who taught me what nationality, what is patriotism, what is spirituality, and in toto, what is human according to the Sanatana India wisdom. So, during our classes, when we were students, our teachers used to say a few words about the importance of our life, the most important aspects of our nation we are expected to know about, the achievements of the nation in the previous centuries, the challenges before us in the contemporary world, and what being expected in future years from our country. Such things were of great interest when our teachers used to shed light on such most important aspects. So, keeping that in mind, I want to quote what the history recorded about our motherland, India. We all know about Megasthenes. He was a tourist and his lifetime was during 4th century BC. Megasthenes, after touring in India, he beautifully respected this holy land with these wonderful words. I shall quote the words of Megasthenes as it is. The information what I am quoting from the great works of such luminaries have been collected from the British Library out of my own interest, and this I generally speak whenever I address the educationalists and the younger generation in particular. Megasthenes says, we should remember that this is 4th century BC. This is almost 2,500 years back. Megasthenes says, the Hindus honor truth and virtues. Theft was extremely rare in Indian soil. What a great credential, the great certificate from Megasthenes. He says, the Hindus honor truth and virtues. Theft was extremely rare. In continuation, let us have the continuous journey of our history. And when we move to 2nd century BC, we have another Greek traveler, a very good thinker by name Arian, who appreciated India in these words. Indians oversee what goes on in the country or towns and report everything to their king. To their king, where the people had a king, and to the magistrates, where the people are self-governed. And it is against use and own to give in a false report. But indeed, no Indian is accused of lying. See, these words speak about the great history of Hindustan, the great history of our country. So let us come to the centuries of AD. We shall come to the time almost that of Jagadguru Sri Shankara Bhagavad Padaji. Huyen Song visited India, a Chinese tourist, in 7th century AD. Huyen Song had great appreciation about this holy land. He says, though the Hindus are of light temperament, they are distinguished by their straightforwardness and honesty of their character. Hindus are known for their straightforwardness and honesty of their character. With regard to riches, they never take anything unjustly. With regard to riches, they never take anything for that matter unjustly. With regard to justice, they make even excessive concessions, but straightforwardness is the distinguishing feature of their administration. So this is what our Huyen Song spoke about India, his own experience, I mean. Let us come to the 11th century AD, where we come across a Muslim historian, a very renowned Muslim historian, and his name being Idrisi. He had such a wonderful appreciation for Hindus of this country. He says, the Hindus are naturally inclined to justice and never depart from it in their action. Justice was the greatest virtue they respected very much. Their good faith, honesty, and fidelity for these qualities that people flock to their country from every side. They wanted to strengthen the country with these virtues like faith, good faith, honesty, and fidelity towards their countries. The next is, let us have in brief, what Marco Polo, a Dutch, recorded in 13th century AD about Hindus. He says, these Hindus are the best merchants in the world and the most truthful, for they would not tell a lie for anything on earth. This speaks about their sincerity. And let us come to the time of Akbar, the Mughal ruler, who had one of his ministers as Abul Fazl, whom we consider as the author of Ain-i-Akbari, a wonderful book of the time. Abul Fazl says, the Hindus are religious, they are affable, cheerful, lovers of justice, given to reticence, able in business, admirers of truth, grateful and unbounded fidelity, and their soldiers they know not what it is to flee from the field of battle. You don't come across a single soldier in Indian army who ran away from the battlefield just to safeguard his life. See, these are the words of Abul Fazl. See, here they have mentioned the name as the Hindus. I have taken their utterances as it is. As we all know, I have quoted almost more than 2,500 years of history. And here, almost before 1,000 years from today's date, India was recognized as Hindustan. All these foreign tourists, the great historians, they used to invariably mention anything about this country as the Hindus they used to mention about. And let us have Warren Hastings, one of the Governor Generals of India who ruled during British administration. Warren Hastings was known for his regulating act. Warren Hastings had great appreciation about Bhagavad Gita. And let us see what he has uttered about India. Indians are gentle and benevolent. They are more susceptible to gratitude for kindness shown to them. They are less prompted to vengeance for wrongs inflicted than any people on the face of the earth. Indians are faithful, they are affectionate, they are submissive to the legal authority. See, he was the legal authority who was ruling the whole country. Invariably, he mentions that Indians were faithful, affectionate, and submissive to the legal authority. Let us have the words of another Briton by name Mr. Elphinstone. Elphinstone says, no set of people amongst the Hindus are so depraved as the dregs of our own great town. The villagers are everywhere amiable, affectionate to their families, kind to their neighbors, and towards all but the government. They were very honest and sincere in their attitude. The Hindus are mild and gentle people, more merciful to the prisoners than any other persons. Their freedom from gross debauchery is the point in which they appear to most advantage, and their superiority is purely in manners, is not flattering to our self-esteem. See, all these most important aspects, they describe how India was. Today, ultimately, since we are dealing with education, the Panacea, you just imagine, the word Bharat in Sanskrit means the land of light, where light is the personification of knowledge. India was a land of knowledge. The whole world had great appreciation and they very reverentially accepted what India said. When we study the history of past millenniums, we will come across that India was very rich with respect to knowledge and wisdom. The whole world had its respect, its obedience, and they almost surrendered to the wisdom of knowledge propounded by Indians of ancient time. But today, very unfortunately, even during our convocation addresses, our guest speakers on the dais, they say, India must become a land of knowledge and wisdom. See, an ocean of difference between these two statements. They may be because of the social reasons, political reasons, historical reasons, so on and so forth. But today, we have landed at a particular point which is really alarming. So that is why I took so much of introduction in my lecture, just to realize, just to recall what India was earlier and what India is today and why it is due to. This is a matter of introspection, and every individual in the society, a man with some sense of patriotism, nationality, with some social responsibility, must seriously think over such matters. The second aspect is with regard to the family. The first one I spoke about, the esteem of our country in the eyes of the great historians and tourists the world history has recorded in the previous millenniums. Now it is the importance of the family, because every individual grown up in a family will aspire for so many virtues from his own family persons. So, family is an institution, as we all know, but the family too has got its own limitations. I want to quote the words of Khalil Gibran, a great saint and a thinker. He, in his wonderful book, The Prophet, we all know Gibran is a Lebanon mystic. He says, you may give them, your children, your love, but not your thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which the children, as living arrows, are sent forward. The children are the arrows from the bows of the parents, whom we consider as parents and guardians. Even the parents have a very limited control over their children, but they must sincerely perform that limited responsibility morally and ethically. Okay? Let us have the clarification for the same utterance of Khalil Gibran. According to him, it is, the children are through parents and not by parents. We must understand this very sincerely. Even the theory of evolution, it agrees with this wonderful fact. If you study the different incarnation of Vaishnava Avatara in India, you can match the earlier avatars were below the water when there was no Homo sapien on earth. There was no earth at all. You have the avatars below the water when there was the species below the water itself. Later on, there was a transformation of the evolution where you could accept the physical body, majority of it was that of an animal with the human head, something like that, or even the converse. Later on, when Homo sapiens started evolving on the earth planet, you could see the incarnations in the human form, avatarana. getting down from the heaven or from a higher strata of truth and educating the people, educating the people. This is about the spiritual science which our physics, chemistry, mathematics, which our material science can never even dream in their wildest dreams, cannot think about this, because this is beyond the sense perception, the truth what you come across in spiritual science. Khalil Gibran says, children are through parents and not by parents. Children are the gift of God. Children are the gift of God, whose temporary custodians or guards are the parents. And they are the guardians only till such time they are not able to look after themselves. But the guardianship, if it is continued to control the children, beyond that period, the relationship soars. Suffocation will be created in the mind of the child, and ultimately it affects the development of the personality of the child. This is something you can compare with the seedling. You have to protect the seedling. It will sprout out. You will have a small plant. It should be properly fenced. Periodically it must be irrigated and manured. And once it becomes a big tree, you need not again rush to the tree to protect itself, because it has got its own role to play. It is self-protective in its own way. More and more, if you want to put a fence to a tree, it speaks about our less intellectuality or less intelligent. So we must always keep this in our mind. And let us have how the words of a great thinker by name A.J. Cronin, a renowned British author, who said the importance of a family. He says, through the centuries, the family has taken foremost place. Family is the unit of society, we know. Society is the unit of the nation, we are familiar about. Not only in safeguarding the morality, but in the evolution of human culture. Family has got a greater role to play, not only in safeguarding the morality of the society, but also this family concept helps for the smooth advancement of the evolution process also. Wherever the family flourishes in the state of vigor and unity, there will be found a strong and a sound society. In an era of fear and restlessness, when people ringed by hostile forces feel isolated in a dark loneliness, the family is their main hope for self-preservation, for maintaining human dignity and decencies of life. The words of Cronin, they clearly speak about how much the society and the nation are dependent on the moral and ethical state of the family. Let us recall the words of William Wordsworth, who says, the external world is too much with us. The external world is too much with us. We are very much exposed to the external world. Late or soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. So, this speaks about what is the importance of our inner world. When we are confined only to the external world, the impact of the external world will have greater effect on our day-to-day life, and ultimately it makes us more materialistic, more worldly in our attitude. Children are highly impressionable and easily influenced by the families, the friends, and even the strangers we all know about. They tend to imitate whatever they see, they hear, they do, or say among friends without even asking a reason. That is the most striking aspect. As most revered Swami Ranganathanandaji Maharaj, whom the whole country has revered as the cultural ambassador of India, who toured in more than 25 countries 16 times, addressing the Western universities, and a man who could inspire our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, our great luminaries like Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Indira Gandhi ji, so on and so forth. Swami Ranganathananda ji, while addressing the parents and teachers, he cautions about the important responsibility of the patients also, the parents and teachers also. Let us have what he has said. Let us see. Swamiji says, it is difficult if we don't deal with it in the beginning itself. You must take care of the plant in the beginning itself. Once it becomes a tree, you cannot go for a permanent change. What we call as character training is based upon this beautiful concept of dealing with the children from the beginning itself. Any child, its sensory system must be disciplined. After about 5 years, the discipline begins. Then only it depends about the circumstances in which the child is living, and slowly it can develop the character. Its mind becomes very clean and pure, and it will be without any infection as such. These are the most important aspects we must keep in our mind while an individual is a part of the family. The responsibility of the family people, the elderly people of the family, and even teachers are invariably the members of our family and our society. So please keep this in your mind so that we can have a human resource out of a human being if we strive hard in this direction. And in continuation with that, as we all know, we want to develop a good citizen. We want to develop a good human. We want to have the transformation into humane, and ultimately what the spiritual science speaks about. Let us see what Shankaracharya has said. Shankaracharya's concept of Brahman in his commentary on Brahma Sutra is like this: that omniscient and omnipotent source must be Brahman, from which occur the birth, the continuance and dissolution of this universe, that is manifested through name and form, that is associated with diverse agents and experiences, that provides the support for actions and results, having well-regulated time, space, causation, having and that defines all the thoughts about the real nature of its creation. This universal intelligence is what we call as God, according to Vivekananda. My dear friends, please observe that Shankaracharya in 8th century AD, almost 1300 years ago, he has spoke about time, space and causation. This is what we very much dependent in the material physics, the material science. Whatever we define in material science is in toto, is confined to time, space and causation. Shankaracharya could define the truth within time, space and causation, and also he could shed light on the aspect of the truth beyond time, space and causation. This speaks about the spiritual evolution. All the religions of the world has invariably, without any doubt, they have defined a state of mind, a state of human species beyond the sense perception. As we all know, liberty is very much loved by human beings. We have come across so many revolutions in human history who fought for liberty and freedom. We know even the French Revolution, who fought for the liberty and freedom. We come across the struggle between the kings, the administrators and the rulers of that time. Napoleon. But Vivekananda defines the exact reason for the failure of even French Revolution. It's very interesting to go through. Even Napoleon, who fought against the previous rulers to have freedom and especially liberty, he miserably failed to establish that in future years of his administration. Let us have a look at what this great man, de Tocqueville, speaks about, cautions about the importance of liberty and its limitations. He says, liberty cannot stand alone. Liberty cannot stand alone, but must be paired with a companion virtue. Yes, we do agree that liberty is a virtue. Individually, it cannot stand on its own. We must understand this. He says, liberty and morality. Liberty and morality. I misinterpreted it as molarity because I was going through a chapter of chemistry today morning and we come across a word called molarity in chemistry. But here I am stressing upon morality. Morality. He says, liberty and morality must go hand in hand. Liberty and law. Liberty and justice. Liberty and common good. Liberty and civic responsibilities. My dear teachers, it is my great responsibility, my happiness, my own contentment to make you to think more about these wonderful values. We are all very fond of liberty, but liberty as it is, it has created havocs in human history. My liberty should not go against the morality of the society. My virtue of liberty should never go against the law of the country. My liberty should not shed injustice in the society. My liberty should not become a spoil sport in the life of the common people of the society. And ultimately, my liberty and my civic responsibilities should be complementary and they should be never contradictory. And this speaks about the responsibility of every individual after becoming a citizen. Let us have the words of the President Eisenhower, who says, every gun that is made, the rifle, every gun that is made, every warship that is launched, every rocket fired. It signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who are hungry and are not fed, who are cold and not clothed properly. See, ultimately, the hungry of the people should be eradicated. The people who are in the cold should be properly clothed, so that our civic responsibility should start from that point. This is the most important aspect every administrator is expected to know about. Let us have even what the eminent conservative leftist Christopher Loch, in his publication, The Revolt of the Elites and the Betrayal of Democracy, he beautifully records like this. These are the things that are very much of greater importance, because here we are getting a beautiful idea how the human society has traveled from time immemorial, and how such changes took place, whether for good or for bad in the society, and how the society suffered because of wrong decisions, and how society could keep itself very safe and prosper because of the good decisions. This beautiful story in the introduction part of my lecture will define you exactly what has happened in the previous centuries of history. Let us have what Christopher Loch expressed. A lust for immediate gratification, pervades American society from top to bottom. There is a universal concern with the self, with self-fulfillment, and more recently with self-esteem. Slogans of a society incapable of generating a sense of civil obligation is the result. This again speaks about, if you take care of only the basic needs, if you take care of only the materialistic needs of the society, it will not suffice. There is another world within you about which you must be very cautious and responsible. See, these are the words of a leftist, a world-renowned, eminent conservative leftist, Christopher Loch. That's why Sister Nivedita, after studying the history of India, she very, very humbly declared to choose against any gates of higher life, to choose against any gates of higher life is a sin far greater than murder, for it means responsibility for spiritual death, for inner bondage, and the result is ruin unspeakable. My dear friends, the present day world is passing through great turmoil, we all know, tension and tradition. We find ourselves precariously poised between a disappearing past and an uncertain future. It is a time to imbibe the universal truths from Sanatana Parampara, the Vedanta, and find out ways for developing courage, compassion, and wisdom to deal boldly with the problems we face today. Let us recall my utterances in the second lecture. Yadeva vidyaya karoti shraddhaya upanishada tadeva viryavattaram bhavati was the utterance. So, we must keep this in our mind and see what Vivekananda says in this connection. His words are very, very significant. The power of meditation gets us everything. It is through the power of meditation all scientific facts are discovered today. Therefore, the practice of meditation is the greatest scientific method of knowledge. There is no knowledge without the power of meditation. The third aspect of my lecture is how these intellectual giants suffered in the hands of the populace of the world in those days. I have two excellent examples before us. Let us recall the name of Srinivasa Ramanujam, a great mathematician from India. Srinivasa Ramanujam lived for just 3 decades, but he created a everlasting impression in the world of mathematics. It was to the eternal credit of Professor G.H. Hardy at the University of Cambridge that Ramanujam came to be discovered and gifted to the world of mathematics publicly. Professor Hardy said the works of Srinivasa Ramanujam were of the same class as that of the renowned mathematicians of his contemporary world, namely Euler and Jacobi. Professor Hardy vehemently pleaded the case of Srinivasa Ramanujam when his name was proposed for the award of Fellowship of Royal Society of London. We must keep in our mind, Ramanujam became one of the youngest fellows of Royal Society. He was the only second Indian member and the first Indian to be elected as a fellow of the college, the Trinity College, Cambridge. Ramanujam expressed his own opinion, the secret behind all his success. He says beautifully, and it is very heart-touching. I shall put the words of Ramanujam as it is. An equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God. See, these are the words of Ramanujam. In his own writings, these are available. In his own words, I am quoting. An equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God. The mathematical knowledge that I could display before the world was revealed to me by my family deity, the goddess, Divine Mother, Namagiri Tayar. Srinivasa Ramanujam says, he has not uttered a single word about mathematics without the instruction and blessing of his family deity, Namagiri Tayar, the goddess of the family. But nowhere in our textbooks we come across such things which can motivate our students spiritually. See, this is the sad story of our syllabus and our textbook committee, author committees, the people who frame the syllabus. Please, why can't we publish the words as it is, what these great people have uttered? And I don't miss even the utterance of his own Guru Hardy about Srinivasa Ramanujam. Dr. G.H. Hardy had great appreciation about his student Ramanujam, and he says, "My student Ramanujam is undoubtedly a brilliant mathematical genius, but hopelessly religious." These are the words of Mr. Hardy also. So this speaks about how the great achievers could face the world even in spite of the mixed opinion about them. Parallelly, I want to quote Albert Einstein. How much troubles, the difficulties he passed through. See, this story may not be known to many of the people amongst us. Albert Einstein became a celebrity and he was recognized as next to Sir Isaac Newton. But it was the time when anti-Semitism was on the rise in Germany. Einstein, as we all know, was a Jew by birth. With the rise of Aldous Hitler to power, Einstein has to flee Germany to England and later on to United States of America. So much was the hatred of Hitler towards Jews that he dubbed the reality theory as Jewish science and banned its teachings. Very unfortunately, in this mad venture, Hitler was supported by another Nobel Prize winner in physics named Philip Leonard. This is one of the most sordid chapters in the history of 20th century. But this tirade of Hitler and Leonard could not continue and find the general acceptance because this theory of relativity proved that it was for the welfare of the universe at large. This is what we must keep in our mind. And now, before entering to the criterion, I must make it very clear from all the discussions what we did till now. What is that? The ancient Sanatana Dharma of India, the Vedanta, has proved beyond doubt that science has got no conflict with spirituality. Discovery of scientific truths and technology, it has proved that the Indian society with its social, moral, ethical and religious laws has proved it was never contradictory with the modern science. With the progress in science, the Indian populace at large could understand that religion is universal and it is not just confined to some rituals and rites. It is a realization of absolute truth. While religion deals with the loss of the inner being or the hidden meaning of existence, the material science deals with the outer law of nature, while science is quest for discovery of nature's law and how to implement them for human benefit. We know these two sciences belongs to the different planes of truth. One is the spiritual science, guided by wisdom, Another is material science guided by knowledge. As Vivekananda rightly said, information should give us knowledge. Knowledge must give us wisdom. More and more you transform yourself from the state of knowledge to wisdom, you will become a spiritual man. There can be no conflict between these two. In fact, they are complementary to each other. Religion is the search for mental bliss, whereas modern scientific technology is the search for material pleasure and knowledge. We must keep in the mind that truth does not change with time. Truth will never change. Truth will never change with time. It is eternal. But science changes with time because we have the operational changes and we have the new discoveries. Now it's time to know what the previous decade spoke about India. Because I mentioned about the utterances of great historians and tourists of the previous millenniums. But today, what the world speaks about India today. Let us quote from the magazine Director, the edition being September 1988. This magazine says, India is a leader in offshore software. Its productivity level is 50% higher than that of UK counterparts. I repeat, India is a leader of offshore software. Its productivity level is 50% higher than that of UK counterparts. The second utterance, the recorded message from Time magazine, August 10th, 1987, it goes like this. India has the potential to be a world leader in software, just as Japan is a world power in the field of manufacturing the hardware. This is because India's fundamental strength in mathematics. The third opinion from Forbes, another very renowned magazine, February 1986, Forbes says, India, with its tremendously talented business class, has the potential to be a very effective export competitor. The fourth opinion from the magazine, the name of the magazine itself is Magazine, April 1985. Sanskrit is best suited to the computer age, particularly in the area of artificial intelligence. I repeat this sentence because today we have so many people who hate Sanskrit, who doesn't want the upcoming of a Sanskrit university. They have such a very narrow outlook. They don't know much about Sanskrit. See, magazine of April 1985, it has declared that Sanskrit is best suited for computer age, especially in the area of artificial intelligence. This is most important aspect of the pride of India. And in continuation, in connectivity, let us have the words of the former Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew was his name. He says, almost 30-40 years back, he said like this: the Indian economy is like a sleeping giant. The Indian economy is like a sleeping giant which, if awakened, could by itself transform the face of global economy. India has the potential to form an independent economic bloc on her own without too much of dependence on anybody else. See, these are really striking, very worth observing and analyzing. This is what the world has viewed about India. Do we motivate our children with these great words? Do we utter at least a few sentences during our class hours, encouraging our children to have great respect towards their motherland? Do you think these are all false or sins, or improper or incorrect? See, never compare India with other people, just taking their view. This is the oldest civilization of the world. We are expected to know much about this. Unless and until we study India, we cannot come to a logical conclusion about what India followed in the previous millenniums. I shall quote the words of the former ambassador, John Kenneth Galbraith, a very popular ambassador the world has seen. He was ambassador in several countries during his service time, and his opinion about India is really astonishing. He says, I have seen poverty in many countries of the world. I have seen poverty in many countries of the world. One unusual attribute I found among poor of India is that there is richness in poverty in India. Indian poverty is very rich, I mean. But see the next sentence. It is really astonishing to know that Indians do not count their wealth only in terms of money. My dear friends, but what is the situation in India today? What is the situation in India today? How does India, with its great human potential and natural resources, manage to remain so poor today? The answer is that we are not poor by nature, but we are poor by policy. We are poor by policy. Very unfortunately, India is the world's leading expert. India is the world's leading expert in the art of perpetuating poverty. We have become the world's expert in keeping poverty alive. We have dreamt that poverty will yield us everything without any effort, either by an individual or by the society. We have given license to all the citizens to beg on the streets for everything for their survival. We have forgotten Uddhared Atmanatmanam of Bhagavad Gita. You are the maker of your own destiny. O man, think in a big way. Low aim is a crime. We have forgotten such great virtues of our ancient Sanatana Parampara. For everything, for anything, we stretch our hands in front of the governance, demanding for putting something into our bowl, begging bowl. This is very unfortunate. Why it has happened so? The reasons are very practical and very much visible, because the whole education system was ruined. What it was earlier was ruined by the foreign invasions, the foreign education that was implemented. Very unfortunately, the foreigners who ruled India, they did not introduce the good aspects of the education that was prevailing in their native countries. Rather, they did not allow Indians to continue the good of the native education of India. Rather, they destroyed the wonderful education system of our country. See, this is very unfortunate. For that, I sincerely request our teachers, our professors, about the greatest responsibility we have towards the children and towards the society at large. See, our practice is to live our daily life in such a way that every moment, every act must become an act of love. We should never disappoint our children. We should never belittle the children. And finally, before I conclude today's lecture, my sincere request to all our teachers is, please, my dear teachers, never encourage the students and the youths to get masked by cheap and temporary comforts. When we encourage our children to get masked by cheap and temporary comforts, we are ruining their future, and they will just become a liability to the country and never the citizens, because as we all know, citizen means the greatest responsibility they are blessed with. The country lives in the citizens. Country is not just the geographical area. It is really the culture, the civilization, the history, and as the great thinkers rightly said, education must make our children to know about the past civilization, must study the contemporary civilization, and equip ourselves so that we can contribute something even after our demise to the future civilization. So, thank you very much for your patience listening. With these words, I shall conclude today's lecture. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.